Welcome back to the Women's Show. My name is Susan Schreiber, and I am pleased to tell you that in the studio tonight with me, I have Dalia Anderman. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and also an international licensed therapist for Hold Me Tight couples. She's a facilitator all over the world. So welcome, Dalia. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks for having me.
And I know the reason you're here is as the holidays approach, things can be tense in families, and it's so kind of you to offer some information on that and tips.
Thanks, Susan. Yes, what I noticed just around the holidays, and sometimes even months before, people start to gear up for the holidays, which sometimes could be made of shopping and lists and invitation and menus. But I always say there's always that uninvited guest, which is stress. And that shows up for many families around many things, anything from wanting to please everybody to some grief. For some family, it's the first family without mom. For some families, it's when a couple separates, and then it's the first holidays when we're not together during the holidays. So there are immense amount of expectation and a lot of fear around the holidays.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious how this, well, I can hear your accent, and do you want to tell our listening audience where you're from?
Sure. In fact, for me, this is, I've been in the United States now for about 35 years. I come from Israel. And so Christmas and Thanksgiving were not my original holidays, but I did have a family here. And in fact, my family has a similar situation where my ex and I are not together, but we do celebrate the holidays together. So the kids didn't have to go from choosing or alternating. And so for me, the holidays are pretty significant, just acquiring the traditions that belong to this family.
Right. So you have a personal story in this, I'm sure, how you got into this kind of work. But I know this is the hardest thing for a lot of families when they have to split themselves between other families,
yes,
the in-laws, and who gets the kids, and how do people navigate that? What kind of tips do you have for that situation, which is so prevalent now in our society?
Right, and just around now, and maybe even in the last month, I do sit in my office as a therapist and talk to people. And one of the things that I definitely encourage is communication, planning, and awareness, because I think so many times what brings us stress is trauma. And trauma can come around our own holiday experiences as kids, or the fact that our kids, now being grown-ups, have their own families. So we are divided between wanting to be with everybody, and also we are sometimes having to deal with the fact that some family members don't get along with each other, or even all the way to ultimatums. If they are showing up, we're not showing up, leaving a lot of splitting and a lot of triangulation, which again makes the trauma around the holidays, not for everybody. Some families manage it fantastic, but for many families it leaves them feeling bitter, scared, upset. And so I always recommend to my families and my couples, I work mainly with couples, to really start the conversation long before the holidays so people know where you're going, people know what to expect, and to also be aware of the trauma, because so many times childhood traumas of being left behind, being left alone, for so many people the holidays, they are alone. So inviting people who don't have where to go, or just being aware that sometimes for many families there is that missing of a person who passed, or of kids when mom and dad are not together. So again, a lot of time around this time of year, especially around holidays, traumas, memories, stress can be pretty intense.
Mm-hmm. And so when someone is triggered at an event, let's say at the Thanksgiving table, Dad is saying, Yeah, you never really made it in that field, did you? You never, if something happens, how does one not have a situation at the table where there's something volatile? Like, how does somebody comfort themselves or how regulate this triggering that can happen with families?
This is a really good question. Thanks, Susan. This is a very good question because I think part of how we work with stress is to numb it. And we all know that alcohol is a very good numbing when we're stressed, but it also takes the cap off of so many inhibitions. And yes, sometimes that will show up even at a big table and even in the middle of a celebration. And one of the things I try to help my clients do, and something that I do myself, is learn, like you said, how to slow down and regulate, whether it's your heartbeat, because as soon as that adrenaline starts running, we get into that fight, flight, and our body and our mind get into survival. So just to be aware, maybe even breathe a little bit, because oxygen helps metabolizes adrenaline. And mainly remember you're not alone. I think that so many times when we are feeling like here we are and this is our own stress, to realize that most families experience their variety of that level of stress. So learning to breathe, learning to separate oneself. I always talk with my clients about understanding the part of you that gets really stressed, responds to trauma, and that there's a part of us that is a grown-up part that has more of that knowledge and the ability maybe to see things more perspective and to really allow that part of us that are stressed and triggered to realize, again, you're not alone. Look around the table, remember where you are, feel your body, breathe, and understand that behind a lot of what people say, there's a lot of fear. Again, do I belong? Am I good enough? Am I going to be betrayed? Am I going to be abandoned? And so just like I offer my couples and all the work we do, is see what is underneath. What is underneath the attack? What is underneath the anger? And most of the time when we go underneath anger or we go underneath an attack, there's fear of not being good enough, fear of being left behind, or just the fear of missing something, whether it's mom that isn't there or missing the other parent who isn't there, or whatever happened this year kind of gets into a crescendo around the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a little break. If you have a question for Dalia, and if you're just tuning in, this is Dalia Anderman, and she's a local licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's giving us some tips how to deal with our stress during the holidays. So we're going to take questions off the air during the music here, and feel free to call the studio, and we'll take your call. And welcome back to the Women's Show. That's Spirit of the Forest, and that's Baka Beyond singing. Just letting you know about a couple things happening in our community, and we'll be back with Dalia in our interview here. The Nevada City Chess Club will meet on Mondays from 6 to 8 p.m. at a Nevada City location, and if you're interested in playing, you may call 305-0333. And also the Sierra Friends Center at 13075 Woolman Lane in Nevada City is offering couples meditations to connect with your partner on Saturday, November 30th, 1 to 3 p.m. Techniques include eye gazing, meditation, solar plexus, tuning, healing touch meditation, and more. So, just thought I'd let you know what's happening here in our community. And welcome back to the mic here, Dalia Anderman. She's our local licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's here giving us tips about how to navigate stress in this holiday season. I'm so glad you could join us tonight.
Thanks, Susan. Love to be here.
Yeah.
I know this is a big topic for people, whether we are dealing with families, whether we're dealing with new relationships, whether we're dealing with being broken up. There's a lot of emotions attached to being the holidays, and the fact that Thanksgiving and Christmas create just one long December, especially this year. They're very close to each other. And so a lot of stress on so many levels, whether it's families, deciding where to go, traveling could be stressful. A lot of couples have hard time when they travel and having to pack the kids. And also financial issues. Holidays can be expensive. Shopping can be expensive. And I always say that better to have presents than presents. And a lot of people now actually are cutting down on buying presents in quantity, and trying to maybe just go for experiences, or maybe even quality, and helping kids to understand about giving and sharing with other people. And so I see it a lot around town. I really love our town for that. We have a lot of events that include the community.
Yes. So if somebody, let's say, is ready to fly out to the East Coast to see family and is stressing out and worried, what can somebody do in a way before they even enter that household where they have their old fears and their childhood traumas? And what do you suggest that somebody gets calm inside and connects to their adult self instead of their child self, like you were talking about? What would be some kind of technique that can just make them glad to be there instead of sorry?
Well, again, I think that understanding that things are not personal, that you're not alone, and that probably the people who you dread seeing are many times manifesting their own fears. I think one of the things, and we talk a lot about it during our workshops, is how to allow your vulnerability to lead. And so instead of leading with fear, which is really what most of the time gets triggered, to understand the vulnerability, to understand what is underneath your fears, and your vulnerability can help you see with more empathy and seeing other people again and how they are insecure and how they're scared. So the more we take a meta picture, the more we can understand that we are very much not alone in this situation, and that a lot of the time when we see that, we don't take it personal. We're actually more present to see that most times, even if people are giving ultimatums, and sometimes it is very stressful, sometimes there is no solution, but that the more grounded we become, the less we swing on the pendulum of fear and panic and being reaction and trigger, that we can, as you were saying, regulate our emotions and be more present with each other, and realize that it's not about making the table look perfect or the presents perfect, but really to be understanding that this is very, very precious. This moment is really precious. And that, yes, sometimes we do need to put boundaries. Sometimes not going may be the answer, or sometimes putting ourselves first, which I think for so many of us is so hard to do, and saying no is a valuable and valid option. But doing it in communication, doing it with vulnerability, sometimes with validity, can really help situations like that.
Mm-hmm. So, how do people find you?
So my website is www.daliaanderman.com. And Susan was asking me earlier about the workshop I lead. And I have a blog that is on that website and talks about holiday stress, everything we talked today. And one of the things I do mention in the blog is that I suggest to people that sometimes a present of connection to each other, especially with couples. We do have a workshop coming up, of a Hold Me Tight workshop coming up in January. It's a local, most time people have to travel quite far to go to those workshops, but it is here in Nevada City, and we still have space for January 1. And it's a wonderful gift, because it's a gift of connection, both for couples and, of course, when the two of you get along most of the time, it helps the whole family. So just a plug into the workshop.
Beautiful. And is there a phone number or?
Yes. So my phone number, I might as well put my cell phone number because that's the easiest to reach me, is 530-218-2721. But I always joke, if you go online and you put Dalia, therapist, Nevada City, you will get me. So my website will show up. And be happy to talk to you, just even if you have specific question about your own family, your own situation. And I'm sure you see me around town.
Yes. And I know on Facebook I saw your blog, which had some nice tips for the holidays. So.
Right. So, yes, I'm also on Facebook. Those of you who I've been pestering on Facebook for years now, both about the workshops and my blog. And it has my Dalia Anderman, MFT, on Facebook. And a lot of good information there, both as far as blogs, questions, tips, how to survive this holiday. So just want to wish all of you a beautiful, connected, vulnerable, happy holiday.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for coming in and
thank you
giving
for
these
me.
words of wisdom. We need it. Okay.
Thanks,
so
Susan.
You're welcome.